It's the Hearthstone Global Games, where Norway and Denmark have both been victorious today, and therefore it is those teams that will be facing off in the winners bracket. Winner of this match, Derek, will be joining our other two victorious teams from yesterday in the top four. And two very well-deserving teams, wouldn't you say?
I definitely agree. It feels like Norway is pretty much the poster child for Hearthstone at the moment. Obviously, we've had another global victor in Layu. Hunter took the trophy just earlier this year. It seems crazy that so much has happened in the span of a year, but it was just earlier in 2019 that Hunter became our world champion. And it's not like the rest of the country is any slouch at all, obviously. The rest of Nordavind, which does include some Norwegian players like Freddie B that we see here, and Jarla also in this group, but NTR, Zorkthar, all very, very strong players in their own right. And Denmark, I feel like, are still having to, it feels ludicrous to say, but having to prove that they are the upper echelon of Hearthstone countries in terms of their play, because pretty obviously we know that they are a good country in terms of Hearthstone. Fury Hunter and Freddie B, two of the absolute best. Hoy in previous years as well has done some very, very impressive stuff. Hoy's brother, his twin brother Nikolai Hoy, has also done some impressive stuff. But if we're talking about the absolute top tier, I feel like they're still having to struggle to prove their worth up there. But a victory over Norway would definitely go a long way to do so.
Well, we are already well into the first game of the series, and it is the Rogue versus the ever-prevalent OTK Paladin. And I caught that last game, Derek. That was a doozy.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I'm still not sure if both sides were playing it correctly, but it was very, very interesting to watch, to say the least.
Denmark's Rogue is sort of the, I'm going to call it old Death Rattle Rogue, by which I mean it doesn't have the Anuba set.
Yeah.
It tops out at Mechanical Whelp. The idea being you coin out the Apothecary and you get a bunch of 7/7 mechs on the board, which isn't quite as powerful as buffing the entire hand +3/+3, but it can get the job done.
And it does, of course, run a lot of the other more classic tempo rogue cards in there, at least from the earlier expansions this year. Evil Miscreant and the Togwaggle nonsense as well, I think is a very, very welcome addition to the deck. Because I feel like Possessi's version of the Anubasath Warbringer Rogue, which already feels a little bit old-fashioned, is, in my opinion, a little bit too dependent on hitting the Apothecary as soon as possible, whereas this deck, as we can clearly see, does not necessarily have to hit the Apothecary to have a chance to win the game. It still just runs a lot of powerful mid-game cards, and so while the power spike is not quite so high when you do hit the Apothecary, it's still very, very strong the majority of the time.
Yeah, very consistent. Exactly. Yeah. Also consistent, though, obviously, the Holy Wrath Paladin, as Hunter Ace has a handful of stuff, and it's very unclear which the correct play is. That's a full hand, doesn't it?
Yeah, the double Crystology at the start will tend to do that.
So, Novice Engineers, unplayable. Thanos, excuse me, also unplayable. But yeah, so gonna just, is that quite out Zeph?
Thanos would be the best card for him, actually. He'd be able to get rid of half the cards in his hand and then carry on drawing.
But now
getting rid of the Acolyte.
If he wants to, has the option to very cleanly deal with this Acolyte with the weapon.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm looking at. I'm wondering about the benefits of overdrawing, because you can overdraw 2 cards here by killing off the Acolyte, one bit at a time. Probably not worth it to do that. I think I'd rather deny them the card draw completely. Ooh, that's interesting.
So Vargoth is particularly interesting with the sap in hand.
It is indeed. That's a very powerful combo. I wonder what other good cards they have with Vargoth in there. I don't think there are many. Yeah, it's not all too much. Vargoth has traditionally just not been very good.
Shadow Step, I
Maybe,
guess.
yeah. Necru and Bile, I guess that's the big one. if they can somehow maneuver that to work.
Oh, absolutely. That would be insane.
That would be actually nutty.
But it's unlikely that the Vargoth ever lives that long anyway, as this Paladin is full of removal. But the question is, what board size is enough to warrant Hunter Ace wanting to use that removal? Because a 2/6 and a couple 1/1s, that's probably not going to do it.
I wonder.
So given the obviously completely full hand that Hunter Ace is working with now, I imagine that True Silver feels like the most sensible option. It clears the space out of hand, sets up for Consecration on the following turn to completely clear the board. Whether or not he swings here is a somewhat interesting conundrum, because obviously if there was a second Witchy Lackey, he'd be very, very sad indeed that he'd done that.
A place to hide.
Okay, well now this is looking like the type of board that needs to be dealt with. That 4/2 Stealth Reborn is pretty frustrating. However, Hunter Ace does have a Consecration that will deal with it once, and it's looking like that's the way he's going to go, but it will leave the Reborn minion back alive again as a 4/1.
It will. I think it's probably still worth it, though. You're setting up for a some kind of a different board clear in the next few turns with a Pyromancer, and I mean, as long as you're not taking too much damage in the next turn, you're going to start drawing again to start finding your healing options instead. And also, somewhat importantly, it clears a Lackey off the board, which means that Togwaggle, were it to be in hand, is delayed for at least another turn.
Yep, no Lackeys on board does make this a very clunky turn for Freddy B now. I mean, I guess Freddy B can trade can hit face with a 4/1 and then evolve it into a random 6-drop. That feels quite powerful, but then you're
So
using up
risky.
the 1 Lackey.
Yeah. Like, if the Lackey survives, then that is an insanely powerful play. I just think his entire game plan revolves around Togwaggle at the moment, and you can't afford to play the Lackey.
Yeah, agreed. Like, togging into the mechanical whelp would be very good at the moment. There will come to a point where Hunter Ace just has the resources to clear everything every turn and then time out for a couple of turns and then win the game. Based on how this game is going so far, Hunter Ace still with 15 cards in his deck and Freddy B dealing a significant amount of damage with Tog on the way.
Yeah.
Freddy's looking like he's in a good spot to me.
I think so. I think if he can find anything half decent off Togwaggle, he should be feeling very, very happy. I was wondering for a second if he'd ever go for Crown instead of Wand, because, you know, there's a decent chance that you get a Death Rattle Legendary, especially with Waxadread thrown in there as well. But I guess against Paladin, it's not really the board threats that you want, because they can deal with it usually quite easily.
Do you like to play with fire? For vengeance.
Bubble, bubble.
Who the king? I the king.
Zathravar for when Shavala becomes playable. I think if that does come to be the case, will be a very, very strong play for Hunter Ace. Actually, I guess having said that, you do have to consider Flick Sky Shiv. Obviously, that can just take out all copies of Shavala in the deck, basically killing your entire game plan. But I think, you know, if it comes to the situation where Hunter Ace is just about to die, having the opportunity to just go for a risky play with Shavala into Zathravar is something you'll happily take.
I must move quickly. The light bends to my will.
And there's the mechanical whelp, even drawn before the wand, which I guess is kind of frustrating actually for Freddy B. It limits the amount that he can do this turn if he wants to go ahead with the whelp. You know, the world in which wand was played and it drew whelp plus Necro Reveal, that would have been the dream. But
imagine.
So many.
Still can't complain about this too much.
Yeah. I think you'll happily take this nice big board. It's that really nice balance as well with versus Paladin, where you have a big threat and then a big death rattle as well, which makes it very difficult to efficiently clear. Sort
of, though, because of the True Silver Champion, Hunter is able to hit into it and then dispatch everything quite nicely. Also, Zeph into Cabal Shadow Priest.
Yeah, I was just thinking that as well. Yeah. It's not bad. You still have to tank this 7, which is pretty scary. Yeah, I think I'd rather see Zephyrus be saved. Like, considering you have decent enough clear options anyway, just hold on to that for something a bit more impressive. Trying to bait out something a little bit more impressive, or at the very least just keep the card draw rolling in the meanwhile.
Okay.
Ooh.
That's a good value wand.
That is very, very good. Flick is fantastic to have to pretty much lock out any play that Hunter Ace could go for with Shavala. And
that's probably something we should have mentioned, actually.
I did mention that.
Oh, you did? Sorry, apologies.
Please, as if I'd ever pass up my one interesting talking point I have to say about this matchup.
So how does Hunter Ace play around Flick then?
Well, there's two options, which he may not necessarily have a choice in. He may be forced into one or the other. But ideally, you just don't play Shavala until your opponent dies on the combo turn. Or the other option is play it in order to survive with Satravar and just pray in some hope upon hope that they don't have an answer to it, or that they don't have the Flick, which is usually not a good game plan, but it's sometimes the best you've got. I'm definitely sensing some kind of a Pyromancer play on this turn, like... Well, I suppose you could be a Zephyrus clear, but I'm imagining Shrink Ray, Pyromancer, Flash of Light to heal your face, clears the board, gets a Pyromancer in play. Because you absolutely cannot be tanking this again for another turn.
Move quickly.
Alright, so yep, it's going to have to be the Shrink Ray plus Pyromancer, but Hunter Ace is running out of removal here. Well, it's run out entirely, unless you're counting Shavala, but obviously, as we've explained, Shavala is very risky removal.
But the good news for Hunter Ace, at the very least, is 21 health is very, very survivable indeed. There's no Leroy in sight at the moment for Freddy B.
No, Freddy B can make a very good board, though.
So many options.
Ziliax plus Wisp into Faceless Corruptor plus Micro Mummy. You know, there's the shapings of a powerful board that could be lethal next turn coming up.
It's true. Yeah, that is true. Wow, does he really want to swing in instead of tanking it with his weapon? Huh. I mean, I guess the advantage of that is you get one more damage face if you're going to swing face with the weapon, but I don't know. I've got to be honest. I was kind of expecting to see you're valuing the chunkier minions a bit more. But then again, every single point of damage matters. is not, at the end of the day, too surprising. Micro Mummy, though, is a fantastic card to be gained off the Pharaoh Cat, just because Ziliax can magnetize onto it and get an immediate extra 3 damage through to the face, which for 0 mana is not to be sniffed at.
Oh, it's pretty much, it's getting to that point. Okay, so Consecration deals with most of this. Well, some of this. I can't even say most of it. So Zephyrus going to have to come down now as the final little bit of removal that Hunter Ace can piece together. And is there going to be a second Consecration this turn? That's pretty funny.
Another conk.
Conk into Zeph into conk.
Is that better than Zephyrus Flame Strike? Oh, I guess, sorry, there was a Reborn, right? So it clears off both.
And also 4 face damage is worth pointing out there as well.
Yeah, I guess that's worth it. Another Consecration's probably not going to be too valuable.
Well, the 4 face damage means that if Hunter Ace needs to go for just the victory immediately, he can, because
they can do that with the weapon.
Oh, sure, because the True Silver? Yeah, okay.
They have their reasonings, right? It means that Ziliax can't be magnetized on and mess around with any of that nonsense. It's fine, I think. So, obviously, the Paladin does not want to play the Shivala and the Sathravar whatsoever until they're able to go for lethal. But now, with the pickup of Prismatic Lens, 1 card left in the deck, Timeout can be played on this turn.
Uh-oh.
It's looking like we might have a GG on our hands.
It really is, despite how powerful Freddy's start seemed to be.
Yeah.
And despite that incredibly powerful addition of Flick, it's looking like Hunter Ace just has this game solved.
Okay, the out now, I think, is Whelp off the top, because he can go Whelp, eviscerate it, or flick it, and then magnetize the Ziliax onto the 7/7 part of it, and then heal up to 30, which keeps him alive, because Hunter Ace can only deal 29 damage on this turn.
Yep. So now he can deal 25.
Yeah.
26, including the Elven Archer.
So it had to be the Whelp on this turn in order to magnetize the Ziliax onto the 7/7. Because that would have healed for 10, which, although it wouldn't have won the game on the spot at all, it could have been the difference between winning and losing.
Yep, you're right. Freddy B can only heal to 22 now. That simply is not enough. So, Hunter Ace is going to have a very straightforward lethal this turn. Bringing the score to 1-0 for Norway. Very strong start to the series, winning what you could definitely argue it was it's a tough matchup for the Paladin for sure.
It is indeed, yeah. I think that I liked a lot of what I saw. It's never too flappable in the onslaught that Denmark was putting forward. I think that leaving up the 7/7s for a turn with the timeout is very smart, just to make sure that he has enough board sweeps to clear everything off. The one like Consecrate thing was pretty much inconsequential, and if anything, it cleared up hand space, which allowed him to draw willy-nilly with the remaining Prismatic Lens in the deck. So overall, as is expected of Norway, I think a very strong game.
Absolutely. Well, that's OTK Paladin 1 win for Hunter Ace. And next up, it's going to be the classic Wombo Combo Priest. Here we go. We've seen this once today already. I believe Hunter Ace, I believe Norway's was banned, and it was his opponents, the Czech Republic, that were playing the Priest. But it seemed very strong. Even now, it does seem very strong.
Yeah, as I was saying, I'm very surprised that we're not seeing more of this combo Priest. I think it's a tremendously powerful deck at the moment. Especially with the nerfs to Shaman, it feels like that early game power that the Shaman was sometimes able to put down, although not quite so consistently now that Evolve is gone, has been nerfed yet again. And so now Priest being untouched, Cleric, which has been begged to be Hall of Famed, or at least changed in some way, still is the absolute cornerstone of this deck strategy.
And I'm going to admit, like, Hunter Ace's opening hand is looking reasonable here. Light Warden into Powered Shield is nothing to complain about. And then with a Divine Spirit on top of that, as the last card picked up, Hunter Ace has what he needs. Can Freddy B find a way of getting rid of this Light Warden before it's too late? Well, he's got Invokes, but they're not available until turn 4 with the coin.
Yeah, with no Earthshock either. This is looking like a pretty slow start for Freddy B, which generally Priest feeds upon slow starts. They just absolutely dominate anyone who isn't off to an incredibly powerful start to the game.
I must consider.
With Northshire Cleric drawn now as well. My goodness, this is coming together nicely. And Hunter Ace knows that short of Earthshock, there really is nothing to deal with this stuff.
Yeah. So what's his best shot? We could see the Evolve on the Novice Engineer on this turn to try and go for, like, I don't know, King Muckler, if we're being very optimistic, or at least something that doesn't die in one hit. But even then, I feel like the fact that Light Warden can just heal and be buffed up to 3 attack probably means most 3-drops are dying straight away.
There is little time. I wonder.
So maybe they just pass over the Novice Engineer on this turn and instead try and set up for Coin Corrupt Elementalist plus Mutate on 4 is their best strategy. But clearly they disagree. Oi.
Oof.
Oi!
That is not the mutate that you want to see. 3 mana 1/2 is well beneath the curve. And, oh, look at that!
New card.
Mind Flayer Karj? Is that how you say it, Derek?
Yeah, I think
Karj?
it's 2 A's. Karj.
Oh, it's not a pirate, though. So just Karj. Very powerful. Not so great when the only card you can target with it is a 1/2. Maybe Hunter Ace also would have liked to see a slightly better mutate on this occasion.
I think you just do it anyway, right? Like, you can be greedy and try and set up for something more powerful, but I don't know. You can just go Karj, double trade, and then Circle of Healing. You draw 2 cards, you get a powerful board in play.
The Ritualist is very strong, though.
Fair enough, fair enough.
And look at Freddy B shaking his head. Clearly he's not happy with this one.
Absolute disaster.
Oh, I just noticed we're actually seeing Hunter Ace on screen now. He's in
Yeah.
a very dark room. He's just playing from the void.
Yeah, it does. Electra Coin allows for 2 mana left over. That doesn't do anything. Just playing Electra, I guess, potentially, if we're being very optimistic, allows you to trade against the Light Warden, but I don't think that ever happens in any reality. Especially as just the Cleric and the Ritualist can trade him. So yeah, the best he's got is just hero power. Is that even better than just pass though? Like, I feel like that just allows Hunter Ace to keep drawing. I think the play there might have just been straight up pass. As bad as it feels.
Well, I mean, this is just looking like, again, the Hunter Ace is going to run away with over the next couple of turns, isn't it? That Light Warden is already getting out of control. If there was a Pyromancer, I'd be ready to declare this game over.
I like the deviation away from the High Priest Amet, for sure. This just allows him to draw a lot more cards, and obviously buff up the Light Warden yet further. Yep, this is disgusting. Lethal represented already. The taunt in the way obviously means as well that a Corrupt Elementalist can't even kill off the Light Warden. Good game.
That is absurd.
Yeah. You don't come
That is
back from that.
utterly ridiculous. And the fact that even if this wasn't lethal, even if Freddie B could somehow deal with the 11-2, next turn there'd be Pyromancer into Circle. Sorry, Mind Flayer, you just were not necessary this game.
I wonder.
If they can find Ethereal Lackey into Plague of Murlocs here, I think that was probably their best shot at winning this game. Or maybe, a Kobold Lackey to take out the 11-2. Maybe there was some kind of nonsense that could happen there. But we can clearly see none of that occurred. That's the end of the game.
And now I guess we just watch the very aggressive fireworks going off as Norway take their second win of the series. That is a very strong start. Maybe we're looking at the first sweep of the weekend, I think.
Definitely feels that way. What do they have left? Only their warrior, I believe, which isn't actually loading on the website. Do you know what kind of warrior it is that they have?
Yes, so Norway's warrior is a very strange, controlly dragon warrior.
Okay.
It does run Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, but it also runs a lot of 2-ups. It's not Highlander.
Okay. Interesting.
It runs cards such as Dragon's Roar. In addition, it's very, very value heavy.
So it's not a Galakron deck.
It is not a Galakron. It does not run Galakron, but it does run Deathwing Mad Aspect.
Love to see it.
So yeah, it's a cool deck. Molten Breath. It is sort of like, I guess, what you'd consider kind of close to original, like classic Control Warrior, in that it's just a control-y deck with lots of value for the late game.
A Control Warrior that actually has to run threats. It doesn't have one infinite value generating card. What an interesting idea.
You know, yeah, there is no Elysiana in this Control Warrior. No Elysiana, which is, as a caster, I love that. That's
you
fantastic.
love to see it.
But yeah, no, clearly Norway have a lot of faith in it. They did shield it in their first series today as well, and they won that game immediately. They've shielded it again against Denmark. So yeah, it's going to be cool to see whether they can pay it off. Before we do that, though, we are going to go to a very short break, so don't go anywhere. Will Norway complete the sweep, or will Denmark make a comeback? Find out after this. Welcome back to Norway versus Denmark, where it's not looking good for Denmark. They have got a lot of work to do to win this series, and Norway only have to win with their rather interesting dragon control warrior. Derek, do you think Denmark have got it in them?
I think they're in with a right shot. It definitely is in Norway's favour, obviously with the 2-game lead that they have here and only their warrior left to win with. But this is a bit of a question mark for me. There's obviously some very powerful dragon synergies in warrior. Obviously, Ember Scale Drake from previous expansions, in addition to all the new nonsense that we're seeing with, as you said, Deathwing Mad aspect thrown in there as well. But it is an untested entity, and maybe Fury Hunter's more classic builds of the decks, or classic approach to the metagame, will be able to overcome it.
I'm just excited to see this deck, Derek. Loads of new cards, lots of big dragons, and again, it was very successful earlier. Dragon's Roar is there in the opening hand. Lots of these cards that gain armor, like Molten Breath, and as you can see, like Ember Scale Drake.
So there's definitely the potential for a lot of armor gain to be found. Do you think then, by that metric, that NTR's game plan in this matchup is just to outlast the damage and out-armor the 50 damage, roughly, that the Paladin can deal?
I mean, it definitely feels like it's sort of possible. However, the counter-argument to that, I guess, is it's not got tank up or anything ridiculous like that. Like, it's not gaining that much armor, just the hero power, and then 3 or 4 cards. Is there Weapons Project in here as well? Oh, there's Weapons Project as well, so that's 6, 12, Shield Block, 5, 10. The other 2 cards that each gain 5 armor each, 4 more of those, that's another 20 armor. So okay, you are talking over 40 armor gain in the deck. That is significant. So maybe that could be a plan, yeah. Just outlive the damage.
I guess the only problem to that is that they actually have to get there. They have to find enough. They have to actually find the card before the Paladin has drawn it through their entire deck. And you have to imagine that the Warrior is going to be on the back foot when it comes to card draw. We can already see here NTR's hesitance to use the Weapons Project to take out the Pyromancer, which I think is probably pretty smart. You have to remember that the main source of damage that can overcome is True Silver Champion, usually, but very often in this matchup you are going to be using Zephyrus to give yourself a Tyrion, which can be an extra 15 damage. So having the Weapons Project to overwrite that is a very, very big deal. Okay, new Ysera is not bad at all.
Yep, new Ysera in a deck like this is actually pretty perfect, right? Because NTR is going to want to be playing to the late game. I mean, hang on, I'm about to contradict myself here. I was going to say, clearly, because it runs Alexstrasza, NTR believes that with this deck, he can go into the late game and last until he's only got loads of 1-ofs in the deck. But then obviously Ysera counters Alexstrasza by shuffling in 6 portals. You don't, hence the contradiction there.
Yeah.
Let me think.
So Fury Hunter's game plan is pretty clearly set out here. I think we can all see it is everything that can be pointed to the face will be pointed to the face.
Just chunk away at that health.
Yeah.
And honestly, Fury Hunter is doing a great job of that so far.
Really is. Even just stuff like, Pyromancer on 2, curving out with these minions as much as he possibly can, is working wonders here for his game plan.
I did, before the games took place, I did have a little chat with Fury Hunter about Team Denmark's strategy, and he just said we mostly wanted to play good decks this week. So we played the best decks a lot, and got comfortable with them. We didn't really try hard to target anything, since you can't really target Shaman or Rogue, and we weren't sure what else people would bring. So they weren't as confident about OTK Paladin being super popular, like New Zealand were, for example. He did also say, our decks are pretty good against Mage, but no one brought that anyways, probably because it's bad against the best decks.
Well, there you go. That makes sense. And I do like the thinking that that Fury Hunter and Freddy B have gone for on Team Denmark, of just in a meta where you're not sure. Yes, you can try and predict and try and get the best of your opponents by counteracting what the best deck is going to be. But generally, if you can find out what the best decks are the quickest and play those best decks the best, I think that is what on average is going to give you the best chance. And as we can see, it's working out pretty well for them so far. Obviously, they won their first series of the day up against the UK. It's not looking good for them here, I have to say. But even if they lose this series, they still have another shot against the winner of UK versus Czech Republic.
I must move quickly. Reporting for duty.
Fury Hunter not able to do much in the way of pressure that turn, and it does give NTR a little opening to fight back. 6 damage on the board. Fury Hunter's not scared of pressure particularly, but on the plus side for NTR, he's keeping the damage off of the board for Fury Hunter, and he is able to start stacking up the armor again with the cards like Shield Block.
Have to imagine it's going to be another hero power turn. I think that NTR is absolutely correctly trying to maximize as many hero powers as he can possibly give. Zaraku is definitely a weird one. It's definitely not at its best, I would say, in Warrior. Given that obviously the hero power does not actually damage you, so unless the Paladin is attacking face, it's kind of difficult to make the 6/6s. But I guess weapons somewhat offset that, so Super Collider with Zaraku is maybe strong enough to make a couple of 6/6s to represent some damage.
There's Deathwing, Mad Aspect, all of the big dragons appearing in now. And yeah, let's just get on with this. Get rid of that Acolyte of Pain. Obviously, Plague of Wrath was an option to prevent the Acolyte from drawing at all, but I think NTR also just wanted to get a big minion on the board.
The draw has all but died out now for Fury Hunter, as I imagine that both of these Holy Wraths are going to be guaranteed 25 damage later on in the game. I think it's pretty much mandatory that you need the full 50 damage versus the Warrior. So if you don't want to overextend onto the board, I'm thinking something like Hero Power Night Scale Matriarch is like still a pretty good development onto the board. It definitely demands some kind of an answer. And then next turn you can go for something like Zaraku Hero Power as well. The problem is that far and away the best card to play on this turn, which in my opinion is Ysera, given that it still puts a good amount of damage onto the board, but also shuffles into your deck. I don't think you can afford to go for that because you really do want to make sure you're getting in those hero powers.
Exactly. Yeah, I entirely agree. Although NTR goes an entirely different route, does still heal for 3, but doesn't fit in the hero power. Instead, putting the Restless Mummy on the board, which will be able to likely stick around, survive any removal, and start to deal with whatever Fury Hunter plays next turn. But wow, that is a different route.
Yeah, I do find that a little bit surprising. I guess he's trying to clear out space in hand for if he wants to go for Weapons Project Harrison later on.
Reporting for duty.
Ooh, Snip Snap is not bad at all. Could just be used here for a good amount of pressure, and obviously the one lifesteal is not bad as well. But yeah, it does pretty clearly seem that this was their game plan all along. Clear space out of the hand so that you can go for Weapons Project Harrison and start drawing through to, as you said, those very powerful armor gain options later on.
.45 effective health for NTR now. It has to be said, that is looking good.
I hope you like my invention.
Did we establish that the maximum damage that this deck can do in one turn, providing there's no true silver on the board, is 29 with the combo and then Zeph into Soulfire?
Yeah, now that Thorisan's gone, I think it's a pretty rigid 29 ceiling.
Unless you get exceedingly lucky with prismatic lenses.
Right. Yes, if you... Well, I mean, even then, it has to be very weird. Like, yeah, you basically have to reduce exactly Holy Wrath, because even Banker can only go down to 1.
Yeah, so you have
and
to
that
swap
only
it with
allows
Elven
you...
Archer or something.
Right, exactly, and even then, that only lets you get Eviscerate off of Zephyrus, which is the same amount of damage anyway. So I think you have to get up to 3 extra mana, where the breakpoint comes in.
Well,
with
if you get Holy Wrath down to 1, you can cast both Holy Wraths and both Bankers in the same turn.
Sure.
But yes, it's incredibly unlikely, and so realistically, most damage is Holy Wrath into Shivala plus Zephyrus, which will then give you Soulfire to cast immediately. That's 29 damage.
Time for Zerafu to come down.
Whenever your hero takes damage... Well, it won't count with armor, will it?
Does it not count? I actually have no idea. Your hero has taken damage, though, right?
Does that count as damage? I don't know. I guess we're about to find out.
Well, I mean, I guess not, actually.
Like, you wouldn't call a minion or a hero with armor that's then lost some armor a damaged hero, right?
Right, he's not damaged, but he has taken damage. Like,
Sure.
The hero has been dealt some damage.
But has he taken damage, or did the armor protect him from taking damage?
Well, now we're getting into Hearthstone philosophy. If an Uther falls and there's no one around to hear it, did it really make a noise?
Please play Consecration. I need to find out now.
Alright, Satravar here feels pretty perfect. You're still keeping intact the full 50 damage available on one of the following turns, and also allowing True Silver to attack face, which is a big deal as well.
Very strong. Alright, let's get educated.
I must move quickly.
It's time.
No, wait, don't trade into it first. No, I need to know! I need to know!
Boring.
Fury Hunter, I need to know! Well... That would imply that at the very least Fury Hunter expected it to summon a 6th.
Yeah. I think it does. I'm pretty sure it does. Give something. But Weapons Project being found there, that is a nice big deal. Allows him to, I mean, effectively gain like 10 health, right? Because you're able to destroy the True Silver. I guess the problem is that you still give him the 6 attack worth of weapon afterwards as well with no Harrison. But the important thing is that it gets them closer and closer to that 50 damage break point.
I wonder. I must choose.
No tomb can hold me.
So I guess they can trade into everything, then play Plague of Wrath, then play Weapons Project and Hero Power.
Okay. Seems good. I mean, NTR is just gaining more and more armor this way.
Okay. So they played Warpath instead of Hero Power, which dealt an extra 2 damage to the Rover. So it's basically the same, I think. Except now
weird.
they don't have a Warpath in hand.
Warpath, yeah. It is weird to see NTR and Hunter Ace forego the hero power so often, but obviously it's
Yeah.
it's
I
working
wonder,
out for
if
them.
that was better. I think it might have been slightly better to.
War Master is very interesting because the question is,
That's
does
true. That's true. Good
NTR
point.
actually want the extra Ysera? Does he want the extra Night Scale?
Yeah, that's
He
true.
does want the extra. He does want the extra other dragon. He wants the extra
Ember Scale.
Ember Scale. Thank you.
And I hadn't actually considered War Master Boon, in which case getting rid of the extra copy of Warpath for the same amount of armor gain, I think is very smart then.
Right.
Move
Just to
quickly.
clear the hand.
Yeah.
I don't see him ever having time to go Voon into Ysera, but the extra Ember Scale is the big deal. And wow, here we go.
I'm out of cards.
Oh, a hit! Well, the other card of the deck.
Guaranteed.
It's completely blind to the fact that I'm getting cards. All right, well,
So it could actually be a double shuffle here, and then go for Holy Wrath next turn. Huh, I wonder if that was better, because if they'd gone for double shuffle there, they could have gone next turn Holy Wrath plus Zephyrus plus plus Lava Burst, which would have given them 32 damage when you factor in the weapon as well. But I guess this means that they don't have to go for the attack next turn. So I guess I'm okay with holding on to the shuffle capability.
oh no. After all of that, Fury Hunter's reaction to that was priceless.
Man, I'm gonna have to get Fury Hunter to teach me whatever he said in Danish there, because I imagine it's a very useful thing to know, because that looked like the height of joy.
After all of that, Shavala wins the brawl, the Holy Wrath finishes the job, and the 2 attack from the Weapons Project comes in as well. And Fury Hunter, Team Denmark, are going to take their first win of the series, a potential comeback. And oh, I feel like I need a shower, Derek.
Yeah, I know, that was a pretty mimetical way to end that particular game of Hearthstone, I think it's fair to say. I still think they could have maybe improved their chances by going for the double shuffle on the turn where they shuffled in the 1 Shavala, because that would have freed up 2 more mana for a Lava Burst on the following turn, which nets them an extra damage. Maybe their line of play had like some extra benefits, like it introduced some extra flexibility into their game plan. But I think overall, you know, they knew what they were doing in the matchup. There were 1 or 2 things that I think maybe NTR could have done slightly differently. The one turn in particular that I'm a bit confused by is the turn where he played Restless Mummy instead of Hero Power on the turn where he played Ziliax. And I feel like it didn't really do that much, and getting the extra Hero Powers in was probably that little bit more valuable.
So now we get to see how the warrior shapes up against the rogue. And again, this is Freddy's version of the rogue, which has mechanical whelp as the top end of the curve, not Anubiseth. So not quite as powerful, but it is very consistent.
Yeah, it feels like the old version of Rogue, but also potentially the new version of Rogue. Because I'm hearing a lot of people talk about how they feel the Anubiseth version is maybe not quite as powerful as the the Whelp version, but at the same time, I'm
Interesting.
still hearing a lot of people talk about the devastating power of Anubisath Warbringer Rogue. It's an interesting debate, and I think we'll have to wait and see, possibly until Arlington for the next Masters Tour event for the proper definitive answer on which version of the deck is best.
Yeah, that definitely sounds reasonable. It will be fun to see the players make their minds up individually and battle it out at that event for sure. But in the meantime, Freddie B's hand has worked out beautifully here. Both Apothecaries, first one up and ready to go. That's a powerful 4-drop with a good death rattle here on the board. And NTR can just sit back and gain armor for now. At least he's not killing the 2-5.
I mean, it's a pretty slim blessing, it feels like. It's somewhat interesting. I think it's worth pointing out that Necrium Blade didn't come down on turn 3. Instead, he went with the Coin Necrium Apothecary, because obviously I think he was afraid of the... Oh, no, wait, no, sorry, I'm being an idiot, because I was going to say the Death Rattle wouldn't trigger, but now that he has the 2-5 in play, even if the weapon is destroyed, it still summons a 7-7. So I take it back. I think this was fantastic ordering from Freddie B. I think you probably hold on to the Pharaoh Cat here as well, because it gives you a proc next turn for Necrium Apothecary. And also, when you have such powerful boards, you just don't want an extra 1-2 for Brawl. And I'm realizing it was just a visual bug, and they've already passed the turn. So now Harrison becomes a very, very scary prospect after some nice ordering that I completely missed out on by Freddie B. If he goes for it and draws a card, he's going to have to contend with a 7-7 on the board.
Yeah.
But obviously, if he kills the 2-5, he's still going to have to contend with a 7-7 because it's just going to be there left over after anyway.
Yeah, this way he only needs to deal with one 7-7 as far as he knows. As we can see, Pharaoh Cat into the second Apothecary, into a weapon swing would be a second 7-7 with a third 7-7 coming up after that. That's exactly what's going to happen. Freddie B holds all the cards here.
This is disgusting. This is utterly illegal.
It's also potentially, I don't know. Is this an argument for why the Anubisath version could be better? Because obviously, if NTR deals with this board, that's sort of the power curve dealt with. But with the Anubisath version, at this point, Freddie B's hand is just huge. He just wins with charges.
I mean, maybe, but having said that, how many cards would he actually have in hand? Like 2 of them would be Anubisats.
So many options.
Obviously, if he's playing the Anubisat Warbringer version and he hits double Apothecary, he's probably winning that game of Hearthstone.
Yes.
I'm not trying to deny that at all. He'd be in a good spot. But I feel like this version, while I can understand that it's maybe not quite so good against Warrior because they have more board clear options, I don't even know if that's necessarily true. Like, this is all just so sticky. It's so hard to deal with everything here.
But it's true, and it's the fact that there's this board, and then another Whelp next turn, and then another Whelp the turn after that, should Freddie choose to go ahead with those cards. So NTR has to be full on defensive now. He does have Warpath Plague of Wrath available from next turn, which could be handy at that point. Until then, how does he deal with these 7-7s? He just can't, can he? He can deal with one of them. Okay.
He cannot. But then obviously next turn we're looking at just another one. Another mechanical whelp coming down, I'd have to imagine. Maybe you actually go with the Corruptors instead to put more pressure on the board. You just want to start threatening lethal sooner rather than later here, I think.
Absolutely.
So many options.
Excellent positioning as well, it's worth saying, on all these minions for the Super Collider from Freddy B. I feel like there's not really any good solution here for NTR as to how to answer this. Like, Plague of Wrath only takes 3 damage off the board. He's still very, very close to just dying if he goes for that line. And he may need to save that for something a bit more impressive later on anyway.
Super Collider is just that little bit too expensive, isn't it? I was thinking, imagine if Molten Breath into Super Collider was both playable this turn, and he'll be able to deal with both of those 7/7s on the right easily.
Ooh.
Extras is not good enough, but Varanus.
Varanus is interesting with Warpath. That's like, you know, if he can deal with the death rattles, that's maybe enough to save him. That's a big if, but it's something.
It's just a slightly more expensive Plague of Wrath with a body, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of. Backwards.
Sure. Yeah,
I mean, functionally.
Yes.
Like
Man, that
Shadow
card
Step
would be
is just-
nutty in Warrior.
Yeah, for sure. With Whirlwind, yeah.
Oh,
Or
insane.
Warpath or whatever else.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane in Hunter, actually, to be fair. It's a very good card.
So many options.
Sap Abyss is, I think, not quite able to get there. Yep, so this makes sense.
Yeah, just go ahead, visit. Put more stats on the board, or don't. Yes, it doesn't really matter too much at this stage for Freddy B.
I think you just keep piling up stuff at this point. Like, you're so likely to win in the next couple of turns that I think you just go all in on that game plan.
Wow.
I like this a lot.
And now NTR does have the Varanus Warpath available, but it would leave a 2 7/7s on the board. Alternatively, no double Warpath. Plague of Wrath is just too
Warpath.
expensive.
Yeah. So he just needs to survive one more turn then. Is there any way he can do that? If he goes Molten Breath, Hero Power, take out a Corruptor, it's okay.
16 health. 16 damage still on board.
Yeah, it's not enough.
What now? I must choose.
No way out.
No way out at all. That is going to do it for Denmark, tying up the series. Wow. Okay. I mean, we said that it looked like a potential sweep from Norway earlier. Now it's looking like a very real possibility at a reverse sweep from Denmark. This warrior for Norway is letting them down.
It really is. It was I mean, to be fair, it was a disgustingly powerful draw there from the Rogue. I think there's very, very few draws from any deck that could beat that, to be perfectly honest. And up against the Paladin, you know, it was the Shavala winning the brawl was a little bit unfortunate as well. Maybe they could have turned things around.
True.
If that hadn't happened. Up against the Shaman, though, I've heard differing reports about Control Warrior versus Shaman. Traditionally, up against all the kind of token or tempo-based Shamans, Warrior has done very, very well because they're able to ignore all the damage and remove everything earlier on. And then later on, later on, they are able to just dominate the board with their own threats. But it feels like the consistent damage and the consistent board pressure from Shaman may be able to overcome that from the Warrior.
I mean, if any deck's going to do it, Galakron, pre-nerf Galakron Shaman is the deck.
It is indeed.
See how this one shakes out. Not a great opening hand from Hunter Ace either. It has to be said.
Did he hold on to the Harrison there? Did he throw that away? There's been some interesting keeps from Hunter Ace and NTR on the Warrior. I have to say, like, there's definitely cards that have been kept that I would not traditionally think are the cards you're looking for. I mean, again, I have like I've only heard of this deck since they've been playing it, but you definitely imagine that you'd be looking for things more like Restless Mummy, Town Crier, Snip Snap, things like that early on, to be able to fight back against the board. Not Harrison, when the deck only runs the Claw, I suppose, as the only weapon.
Well, very early mutate from Freddie B, and he looks excited.
Oh,
Whoa, okay.
you love to see it. Yep, Corruptor or oh yes, Devoted Maniac, I guess at this point as well. One of the absolute
it's not quite
best
as
eight
good
drops
as
you
the
can get.
Corruptor, but wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's still
Four-
absolutely nutty. Especially as he
4
could
mana,
potentially get
7/7, Derek.
Yeah. With Rush and a 2/1. And it invokes your best card in your deck. Like, oh my god, it's so illegal. Alright, couple of options now.
I really want to play the 4 mana 7/7 while Hunter Ace is still going to struggle to deal with it.
I guess so. Is that better than the Corrupted Elementalist though? I guess you could go 4 mana 7/7 like the Devoted Maniac and then Invocation of Frost as well
Freeze
to
the face.
freeze the face.
Yeah, and to trade the 2/1s into the minions on the board. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he doesn't have any armor. That feels pretty strong. It does mean it's significantly harder to use the Faceless Corruptor on the following turn, which would be a pretty powerful play. But I guess you still have the Totem, which you can maybe come down on. So yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with this play. I think you're pretty happy to use the Invocation of Frost here, right? Just to play around a Plague of Wrath.
Yeah, I really like it personally. Freezing the face, trading into the 1/2. Oh, okay. Funnily enough, he's going to freeze the 1/2 and leave the face. I guess there's not really any weapons that Freddie B is particularly afraid of, but Brawl, on the other hand, is a great pickup. It's a big resource to use just to deal with essentially a single 7/7, though.
And if he had traded in the 2/1 into the 1/2, it would have made Brawl significantly more likely for the 7/7 to survive.
That's true.
Definitely a bit of a weird one.
All right, in comes the damage.
Yeah, it's feeling more and more like now the only thing that Freddie B needs is Galakron, pretty much. He's got all the invocations he could possibly need. So we're just looking for Galakron or Kronks.
I wonder. What to do?
So we're obviously expecting this damage to go, the 7 damage to go face. I guess he's wondering about positioning being the main thing. How do you best position these minis to play around Super Collider and also not overdevelop? I feel like Faceless Corruptor on this turn would be a little bit too much of an overcommittal onto the board, given that's effectively 10 damage that could come down at a later point. So I'm fine with this play. If Brawl does come down here, at the end of the day, it's not actually that much resources that you're losing.
No, absolutely not. You got the damage in with the 7/7 at least once, which is fantastic, given
That's
that it came from the Mogu into the Thunderhead, into the... Not Thunderhead, the... What's the Rhino called?
Akali?
Akali, of course. Of course it is. Came from the Akali, from the Mogu with the Mutate. Like, it's essentially a free 7/7 that just went face. That's great. You take the single hit from that.
And that's actually one of the things that I've seen players talk about with the nerf from Mogu from 7 to 9, is that like 8 drops can be pretty swingy in terms of which ones you get. Like there's obviously some very, very good ones, like Octasari, Tyrion, Batterhead can be like that, Akali can be like that as well, and some very bad ones, obviously like Hyreek and Heroic Bartender. Whereas 10 drops generally are like a little bit more middle of the road. Like if you're not hitting, they're all just fine unless you're hitting the Colossus of the Moon. Most of them are pretty easy to deal with.
What's the mana cost of Mulch Muncher? Was that buffed to 9?
It's 9 now, yeah.
Yeah, it used to be 10, didn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's why I was thinking of that as a 10 drop and then realized, okay.
Yeah.
Well, with 2 Shield Slams available, and a Warpath, and a Plague of Wrath, like Hunter Race is in a good position to at least hold out for the next part of the game.
I mean, that's true to an extent, but Freddie B has some mighty powerful plays coming up. Like, obviously, Electro Dragon's Pack is incredibly powerful on turn 8, and then after that, he's still got a little bit of draw with the Novice Engineer. As soon as he finds Galakron, which can only be so far away, I think he's looking fantastic.
What now?
Mana Tide as well feels pretty good indeed.
Well, now that Brawl is looking much better, as is Warpath, Plague of Wrath.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other... Well, sorry, Brawl is the other choice, but something has to be used here to clear the board. There's just a stupid amount of damage in play. I guess on
Would
a
you
board like
rather
this,
save the Plague of Wrath for after Galakron to guarantee the 8s will get dealt with, or...?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Okay. I guess Hunter Ace decided that a 5/6 surviving is not acceptable. It's just too much damage on the board still.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess this makes sense. Whoa, Vargoth Farsight, if you wanted card draw, there it is, my friend.
Very nice, but it does use up almost the entire turn. The only card that Freddie would be able to play with that is the Novice Engineer. And it's not really applying any pressure, but there's not too much that he can apply pressure with apart from Faceless Corruptor. I guess, yeah, Farsight first, then decide if you want to play Vargoth after. Could just play the 2-mana Faceless Corruptor now, just for the value trade, and then Vargoth after that.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I think I like this most of all. Like, yes, it doesn't apply much pressure, but honestly, it doesn't really need to.
Are you playing Vargoth, Derek,
or
are you playing a Faceless Corruptor now? Oh, wow.
I mean, I was definitely playing Vargoth there, I have to say. I think I like turboing through your deck as quick as possible. But at the same time, to the credit of Freddie B here, you know, there's a mystery dragon in Hunter Ace's hand now. If you just don't develop anything onto the board and they're able to drop, I don't know, Ysera or Zaraku or some other huge threat, things could get a little bit scary. All right, there we go. Card draw not all too necessary anymore.
Had to come at some point.
I wonder.
You got to be careful here, though, because just going for 2 8/8s and rushing them into the 4/3 and the 5/5 obviously leaves you open to Super Collider. I guess if you're dealing 17 damage on this turn, though, to the face, maybe Super Collider doesn't even become that much of a threat anymore. Yeah, I think I like this. Just keeping your 8/8s that little bit less damaged.
Yep.
attacking with
Also-
one on the outside.
Also, another worst case scenario of a brawl is a 5-3 surviving, and that's not all too bad.
It's a very good
Dragon
point.
Queen Alexstrasza drawn, not active yet though.
Yeah, that's just a straight up 9 mana 8/8 at the moment, which obviously is not going to get the job done. So we're probably looking at Brawl on this
So
turn, I
Harrison
guess.
Brawl.
Yeah.
I was looking at Ember Scale Brawl, but okay, getting rid of that claw definitely has merit.
Oy, oy, oy.
That belongs in a museum.
Molten Breath. Molten Breath Shield Slam isn't the worst combination.
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
Deals
Takes
with a
out
5-4.
a lot of damage.
Or deals with a 5-4 and an 8-3.
So you're alive. But I
Yeah.
mean, so does Brawl usually. Like, if
True.
you go for Brawl, it would have to be exactly an 8-drop surviving. Sorry, an 8/8 surviving, and then also.
Ooh. Well, this is a
Shadow
full
Walk
board
at the
clear.
top. All right, saving the Brawl instead. I can respect this.
Wait, there had to be a way of doing that better. Oh no, there wasn't because of the annoying 8/8 shape.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was wondering if he could, deal with the that 8/8 so that he could then super collide one of the Faceless Corruptors into the 8/3.
yeah,
but
I
I
think
don't
not
think it was
quite.
quite possible.
Yeah.
Double the power, double the storm.
Well, things definitely not necessarily over now for Hunter Ace. Even though he's only down to 10 health, he can try and swing this one back. Freddy still does not have Shadow Walk, so if he has a couple more weak turns, maybe that's enough time for Hunter Ace to, activate his Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, get down both of these Ember Scales as well, perhaps.
Double Ember Scale this turn is really strong. Super Collider can deal with the 3/3 and the 2/1.
Man, that card is actually just pretty powerful.
Ember Scale? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, if Dragon decks are now a thing with Molten Breath, absolutely.
It's a lot of sustainability.
I think I prefer this marginally to killing the Manatide Totem, but I can definitely see why Hunter Ace was considering clearing the Manatide Totem with the Super Collider there. But as it happens, I think Hunter Ace is in the position with only 17 health where he does need to prioritize dealing with all of the minions that can deal damage on Freddy B's board. But hold on now, Draconic Lackey is a really nice pickup for Freddy B here.
Yep, allowing him to clear off both of these cards with Faceless Corruptor as well is not bad at all. We can't get to see the options very annoyingly.
I want to see!
All right, that'll do. That'll definitely do. What was it likely? Oh no, wait. There's no. I was gonna say it would have likely have been the Shaman class dragon, but that's it's not how Discover works anymore.
We've had confirmation from Fury Hunter in the chat that you could not sequence that better, and I'm not going to argue with him.
Yeah.
I think we'd reached that conclusion now anyway, but yeah,
Yeah,
I entirely agree.
Awaken, my children.
All right, what are we looking at now in terms of Damahe? 4 to the face, up to 9, I guess, with his Shudderwock. As soon as Kronks is found, though, that's potentially a lot more damage because a +2/+2 buff to all of these minions looks pretty juicy. I have
It'd be
to say.
10 right now, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So Kronks first, then Shudderwock, because then you get another Kronks, which could deal 5 to the opponent's face, or could buff up your board.
Yeah. Or it
Or
could clear
do one of
anything.
it. Yeah, it could clear everything. That'd be awkward. But it wouldn't clear the weapon, and that's the main thing.
Yes. Yeah. All right, Shudderwock time.
All right, let the 2/1s hit the board.
Just got to hope for good ordering here that he gets a couple of 8/8s as well. He's guaranteed only 1 now at least. And that's the worst ordering he could get. But it's still not bad at all. Getting a bunch of Shudderwocks as well is definitely nothing to be sniffed at.
Mummy isn't ideal. I guess it's okay. It can be played before the brawl to try and find a better outcome. Wait, no, even better. It can be played after the brawl to deal with a Shadowwalk if it survives.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, the Shadowwalk survives, and even though it's cleared, that's another resource gone from Hunter Ace. And if you just look at this, Freddy B is clearly so far in the lead in terms of resources that he has available. He can just keep pressuring over and over again. This Dragon's Pack is insane!
Right, active Alexstrasza into new Deathwing. Or just draw new Deathwing. That is possible.
Well, I mean, active Alexstrasza into old Deathwing. Maybe we would get the job done here.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, new
Probably.
Deathwing doesn't even clear this board.
Yeah.
Oh, Town Crier. It's just
Yeah, I'm
not good
pretty
enough.
sure that Rush
Nope.
is not the last minion.
And Freddy B! Fury Hunter, Team Denmark take the win with the reverse sweep. They will be the first team out of our teams today to qualify to the top 4. And wow, a reverse sweep, Darek. What a well-deserved win.
Yeah, very impressive display there from Denmark. It harkens back to what is a key tenet of Hearthstone theory, which is just that generally at the start of a metagame, you want to go with the best stuff because it's so difficult to predict and counter-predict what your opponent's going to go for. And a couple of teams didn't end up doing all too well because they went a little bit too next level. New Zealand in particular come to mind, going 0-2 this weekend. And Norway here with their Warrior, maybe they'd have something to say about it in terms of sample size, but it definitely felt like it was by far the weakest of their decks.
All right, we have celebrated, Darek. We have had a team qualify, but next up, we're going to have the United Kingdom up against the Czech Republic. One of these teams will be eliminated. Stay tuned to find out which.